So let's take a case study. One of these values, the one considered the most important, according to your author, Thomas Patterson, the idea, and it's really encapsulated by the American dream. If you work hard, you will succeed. So this statement, people consistently throughout generations believe this is the most important thing to pass on through political socialization. Most important to pass on to your kids is this concept. And clearly, we believe this to be true, but when you start to really pick it apart, it becomes a little flawed. So first of all, I choose this picture of Bill Gates because when we're talking about success, we are in fact in a capitalist society talking about monetary success, financial success. He and Warren Buffett exchanged first and second place for the richest man in America. And so Bill Gates gets to be the poster child for, if you work hard, you will succeed. He wasn't born into massive wealth. He, became a billionaire through his ownership of Microsoft. And so if you work hard, you will succeed, just like Bill Gates. That's the lesson that we teach. Now, first of all, what we really believe is that this is an axiom, that if you work hard, then you will succeed. And that's where it becomes a problem. If we just say, listen, if you work hard, you might succeed. A lot of times you'll succeed. Sometimes you'll succeed. Not as wildly as this guy, but you'll be okay. If that's what we taught, it would be different. But what we really believe is that it's an if-then statement. And the problem with that is the conclusions that we draw, not just about success, not just about hard work, but also about the reverse. What happens when you fail? Because if you don't work hard, then you'll fail. That's the reflexive property, the if-then statement. You can replace those. So if you haven't succeeded, then you didn't work hard, and you must be lazy. And that's not fair. That's not a conclusion that you can draw, because lots of people who work hard don't succeed. And that's where we end up with a big problem with this statement. We know lots of people, and we can have a whole class discussion about this, about breaking apart this sentence. First of all, we all know people who work really, really hard and don't succeed. We know lots of people who are success and never worked hard. You can talk about, winning the lottery. You can talk about being born into immense wealth. You can talk about people who got lucky, and entertainers and sports stars are certainly working hard at their profession, but wow, they got lucky to have that talent too. There's a lot of ways you can deconstruct this. The one that I think needs to be considered the most is the people who work really hard and succeed a little bit. They get, middle class success, not immense wealth, and then something happens. They get sick, they lose their job, the recession happens, something happens, but they've been doing everything right, and they just can't stay at that level of success. When before Obamacare came along and insurance companies could deny coverage because of pre-existing conditions, they could cut off, they could have a cap on how much they would spend. In the year 2010, before Obamacare went into effect, we saw that 68% of bankruptcies that year cited medical bills as the number one cause for bankruptcy. And 56% of those who went bankrupt because of medical bills had health insurance when they got sick. So there's a lot of people who work really hard and can still lose everything. So when we do this, when we make assumptions about people who have failed when we make assumptions about people who are poor. That if they hadn't succeeded, then they must not have worked hard. Because if they had worked hard, they would have succeeded. When you make those assumptions, we've got a problem in public policy. Because if we believe the poor have failed because they didn't work hard, what are the consequences for that? What are the public policy consequences for that? Well, if you're a legislator talking about welfare, why would you want to give welfare to the poor who are lazy, who refuse to embrace the American dream? Why would you provide food stamps for people who can't afford food if they're lazy and they didn't work hard? Wouldn't we be able to incentivize, encourage them to work harder if we didn't give them welfare, if we didn't give them food stamps, if we didn't give them social services? Then they would have to work hard. That's the theory behind this concept. And the problem with that is that we have millions of people in America who are not making it, who can't afford the middle-class lifestyle, who can't afford to get a house, who can't afford to pay their bills. So if we believe this, do we have to believe that? And that's the real question that we have with a lot of these American values, is that it's not a terrible idea to pass on to the next generation that if you work hard, you will succeed. The problem becomes when we make them policy objectives, when we actually translate those values into our public policy without the complexity, without deconstructing it, without really looking at the pros and cons of public policy, and we simply ascribe motive to people based on their income. That's where we run into problems, and that's what's happened with our public policy debate on this, is we have very different perspectives on why people are poor. And